Most people woke up today without realizing something major has already changed. Quietly, without headlines or alarms, China has taken the lead in an industry that shapes how the modern world sees itself. The field is called remote sensing, and until recently, very few outside scientific circles even talked about it. Yet it touches almost everything: security, infrastructure, energy, climate, and economic power. Remote sensing is simple in idea but massive in impact. It means collecting information from a distance. No boots on the ground. No ships in the water. Instead, satellites, aircraft, and spacecraft measure energy coming from Earth light, heat, radio waves, and turn it into data we can read. NASA has relied on this for decades. So has the U.S. Geological Survey. From tracking wildfires to predicting weather, from monitoring farmland to mapping the ocean floor, remote sensing has been a silent backbone of modern decision-making. What makes this technology powerful is speed and precision. Data can be gathered in real time, even from the most remote places on the planet, and at a fraction of the cost of traditional mapping. That efficiency is why governments and industries depend on it. And that is exactly why control over this field matters so much. For years, the United States assumed it would always lead here. That assumption turned out to be dangerously wrong. Remote sensing is not just about science or pretty satellite images. It is about money, risk, and control. Industries that move billions of dollars depend on it before they make a single physical move. Construction companies use it to decide where cities expand. Energy companies rely on it before laying pipelines or placing oil rigs. Governments use it to plan airports, highways, and entire urban systems. Before any worker arrives on site, satellites and drones have already done the first job. They create detailed maps, measure land stability, detect underground features, and reduce uncertainty. One wrong decision can cost billions. Remote sensing reduces that risk. That is why it became critical in capital-intensive industries where mistakes are not affordable. For decades, the United States had a clear advantage here. The hardware was expensive, complex, and built almost entirely at home. Satellites, GPS systems, advanced imaging tools, these cost tens of billions of dollars to develop and maintain. The US built the first systems, trained the best experts, and housed the leading institutions like NASA and top universities. Because of this, American experts believed dominance was guaranteed. The costs were high, the barrier to entry was massive, and leadership seemed permanent. But technology never stands still. Artificial intelligence and machine learning changed the rules. Accuracy improved, costs dropped, and the field became more scalable. That shift opened the door for a new leader to move fast, and China was ready. For a long time, experts assumed the United States would always lead remote sensing. It felt natural. The best research came from NASA, top US universities, and well-funded American labs. Even specialists inside the field believed this dominance would last for decades. But while the world was confident, something important was happening quietly in the background. About 10 years ago, a professor at NYU noticed a clear pattern. More and more high-quality research papers were no longer coming from the US. They were coming from China. At first, it seemed minor, one or two papers here and there. But that trickle soon turned into a flood. Before 1990, China published almost nothing in remote sensing. At that time, the United States produced over 90% of the world's research in this field. By the year 2000, China had reached about 4%, roughly the same level as India. Still, no one was alarmed. Then came the shock. By 2023, China was producing nearly half of all global research in remote sensing. The United States had fallen to under 10%. China was now producing 5 times more research than the US. This was not just a shift in numbers. It was a clear signal. Global technological leadership was changing, and most people did not notice until it was already too late. This change is not just academic. It has real-world consequences, and the stakes are enormous. Remote sensing is one of the fastest-growing industries on the planet. In less than 10 years, the market is expected to triple in size and reach around $1.4 trillion. That kind of growth attracts power, influence, and long-term economic control. Countries that lead in remote sensing gain a huge advantage. They can plan cities more efficiently, manage energy resources better, and build infrastructure with far less risk. From airports and highways to oil pipelines and offshore rigs, every major decision depends on accurate data from satellites and drones. A small mistake can cost billions of dollars. This is why leadership in this field matters so much. It is not just about science. It is about competitiveness, security, and economic strength, and that leadership has now shifted. China is no longer catching up. It is setting the pace. In just 3 years, China filed more than 43,000 patents related to remote sensing, becoming the global majority holder. In the 1990s, the United States owned almost all of these patents. Today, that balance is completely reversed. At the same time, machine learning applications are growing at an explosive rate. China's low-cost AI systems are accelerating research faster than many expected. This combination of scale, speed, and cost efficiency is reshaping the entire industry, and the rest of the world is struggling to respond. Behind this rapid rise is a powerful but often overlooked factor: funding. Research leadership does not happen by accident. It follows the money. And over the last decade, China has directed massive financial support into remote sensing research, while others slowed down. Data from the 2011 to 2020 period already showed a clear shift. Even back then, Chinese institutions held 6 of the top 10 positions globally in remote sensing research output. NASA and the US National Science Foundation ranked only 7th and 8th. Europe followed behind. These numbers are not recent, which makes the trend even more alarming. The difference becomes even clearer when funding is compared to results. China's National Science Foundation accounted for over 53% of global research output in this field. The United States, by contrast, contributed around 5%. This imbalance created a self-reinforcing cycle. More funding attracted more researchers. More researchers produced more studies. More studies led to more patents. And more patents strengthened China's industrial and academic dominance. This is what experts call a virtuous circle, and once it forms, it becomes very hard to stop. As expertise deepened, China began pushing into related areas like quantum technologies and ultra-precise distance measurements from space. These were once the exact technologies that gave the United States its edge. Now, that advantage is steadily fading, replaced by a new center of gravity in global science. For decades, the United States led remote sensing because it controlled the hardware. It built the satellites. It created GPS. It trained the experts at institutions like NASA and top universities to read complex signals and turn raw data into usable knowledge. This combination of technology and talent kept the US far ahead of everyone else. China changed that equation. China already had a growing space program, and its drone industry was improving fast. Once it focused on remote sensing hardware, progress came faster than most analysts expected. China did not just copy existing systems. It rebuilt them at lower cost and scaled them quickly. When China finally caught up on the physical technology, it did so at a fraction of the price. Launch systems became cheaper. Manufacturing accelerated. Sensors improved. What once took decades and massive budgets could now be done faster and more efficiently. The numbers tell the story clearly. In 2022 and 2023, around 70% of the satellites China launched were designed specifically for remote sensing. That level of focus is not accidental. It reflects a national strategy. The percentage dipped slightly the following year, not because of retreat, but because of a surge in other satellite launches and a shift towards smaller, next-generation constellations. These compact systems are designed to work together, providing constant, high-resolution coverage of the Earth, and they represent the future of remote sensing. One China is already prepared to lead. What we are seeing now is not a temporary lead. It is a structural shift in global control. Remote sensing shapes how nations see the world literally and strategically. Whoever controls the data controls the decisions that follow. With dense satellite networks and advanced AI, China can monitor land use, track environmental change, and map infrastructure in near real time. This capability feeds directly into economic planning, disaster response, agriculture, energy, and defense-related logistics. The advantage compounds over time. Meanwhile, other countries are forced into a reactive position. When you depend on someone else's data, you also depend on their priorities, timelines, and access rules. That dependence carries long-term risks, especially as remote sensing becomes more embedded in daily decision-making. China's ecosystem now supports itself. Universities train specialists who move directly into industry. Industry feedback shapes new research. Government funding ensures continuity. This tight integration is difficult to match with fragmented systems elsewhere. What makes this moment especially significant is speed. Past technological shifts took decades to unfold. This one happened in little more than a decade. In one generation, leadership moved from near-total U.S. dominance to Chinese majority control. Remote sensing is no longer just about observing the Earth. It is about influence, foresight, and power. And the balance has already changed. The world is now operating under a new reality, one defined by who sees first, who understands fastest, and who acts with confidence based on that knowledge. This shift in remote sensing is not just a story about satellites or research papers. It is a warning about how fast global leadership can change. An industry most people never think about is quietly shaping the future of economics, security, climate planning, and even food supply. Remote sensing decides where cities expand, how crops are managed, where resources are found, and how disasters are predicted. As AI improves and costs keep falling, this technology will move from governments into everyday business decisions. Those who control it will set the rules others must follow. China understood this early. It invested in research, trained thousands of experts, and built affordable hardware at massive scale. The result is an advantage that keeps growing with time. Catching up will not be easy, and waiting will only widen the gap. For the rest of the world, this is a moment of choice. Either invest seriously in science, data, and long-term thinking, or accept dependence on those who already did. In the modern world, power is no longer only about armies or factories. It is about information and foresight. If you want to understand the hidden systems shaping our future technologies that decide who leads and who follows, this is exactly what we break down on Mr. No. Subscribe to Mr. No for simple, powerful explanations of the facts that quietly run the world.